James P. Watson, often referred to as James Bluebeard Watson, was married at least 25 times, with some reports suggesting the number is closer to 40. Having murdered at least 9 of his wives, he proved to be one of the most prolific and least documented bigamists and wife murderers of the 20th century. First he would marry, then take his spouse's money and property, and in many cases, even taking their very lives. Watson was quoted as saying, "I didn't kill my wives for their money. I only married them for that. I must admit it gave me pleasure to put them out of the way." Officials believed he killed his wives if he found them to be a bit too curious about his business, and if he felt this might lead to his exposure. Watson was born Charles Gillum in 1870 in Paris, Arkansas. As he told it, his childhood was characterized by mental and physical abuse. His father was absent and his mother was volatile. After she remarried, she changed young Charles's name, first and last. He became Joseph Holden after his new stepfather, but this new name did not help him to blend in with his new family. His stepfather tormented him, and he ran away from home at the age of 12. Holden settled in St. Louis, entering the advertising business. While in their employ, it was brought to light that he was embezzling money, which led to a criminal indictment in 1912. He fled into Canada, adopting the Watson alias that would see him through the rest of his life. Watson turned to bigamy as a way of making ends meet. His favorite method of procuring a spouse was through the classifieds. It was common practice in the early 1900s, with a whole section of the newspaper dedicated to matrimonials. One such ad read as follows: "Would be pleased to correspond with refined young lady or widow. Object, matrimony. This advertisement is in good faith." For those who replied to his ads, his modus operandi was to arrange a personal meeting leading to a whirlwind courtship, followed by matrimony. He would then contact his wife's relatives and friends and convince them to give him money for the purpose of investing. He and his wife would make wills in each other's name, and further, he would inform his wife that his job would require him to be away frequently. Enter Catherine Wambacher, who was a successful seamstress from Iowa. She was attractive, business-savvy, and carved out a reasonably happy life for herself. At 45 years old, Catherine dreamed of a future with a good husband. That's when she met Watson, who went by the name Walter Andrew. Watson wasn't conventionally handsome, but he had a smooth charm that Catherine couldn't resist. He said he worked for a trust company in Canada and that he made good money. The whirlwind romance lasted only a few weeks, during which Watson begged her to marry him. The company he worked for transferred him to Los Angeles, and he promised to provide for her if she'd become his wife. It didn't take much coaxing before Watson and Catherine eloped and married in Seattle on November 8th, 1919. As promised, Watson moved Catherine to Los Angeles. Mr. and Mrs. Andrew made their home in a quaint East Hollywood apartment. A few weeks after their arrival, Watson told his wife he needed to leave for a business trip. One business trip wasn't so unusual, but Catherine became suspicious as these trips became longer and more frequent. Watson began to infer to his wife a desire to rob a jewelry store in Los Angeles. Catherine was appalled by the idea and demanded he not even consider the notion. He swore he was not serious about the idea, but this only added to her doubts and fears as to what he might really be up to. His job became a point of contention in their relationship. He no longer claimed to work for a Canadian bank. He told Catherine he was a secret agent assigned to bust illegal diamond trading. Catherine was afraid her husband might be involved in illegal activity, but she couldn't accuse him of any particular crime. While Watson was away, she decided to hire Dick Armstrong of the Nick Harris Detective Agency. Catherine explained her worries to the detective, who noted that his absence appeared to correlate with recent bank robberies. He found no evidence that Walter Andrew was ever a federal agent. Armstrong suspected Walter was possibly planning to rob the Heinz Bank in Los Angeles. Armstrong contacted R. Lee Kautz and Harvey Bell of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office on April 9, 1920. The three men immediately went to arrest Watson on suspicion of bank robbery. Watson fought tooth and nail to avoid capture, but was ultimately apprehended. In the coat pockets, officers found a few storage receipts, women's jewelry, telegrams, and the key to a mysterious bag Watson would never allow Catherine to handle. The men rushed to open it, expecting to find robbery implements. What they found broke Catherine's heart. Watson had a collection of strange documents, including personal letters, Liberty bonds, photographs, deeds, wedding rings, and several marriage licenses. None of these documents bore the name Walter Andrew, and all of it referenced different women. An examination of the marriage licenses revealed Walter had used multiple pseudonyms and recently married 3 different women. Finding no evidence of bank robbery, the officers arrested Watson for bigamy. While in custody, the Los Angeles Police Department rushed to find names of women he might have married. No easy feat, considering he used an alias for almost all his legal documents. The police were able to piece together a trail of abandoned or missing wives, and even suspicious deaths of wives associated with Watson's discovered pseudonyms. One pivotal discovery was that of a cold case in Olympia, Washington. In July of 1919, an unknown person killed a woman with a hammer and buried her body in a shallow grave near Plum Station. After James's arrest, they were finally able to identify her as 27-year-old Elizabeth Betty Pryor, one of his many wives. They brought him to LA County Jail and charged him with murder. At first, Watson was reticent. He wasn't giving away a thing about his relationship or Betty's death. He sat in his cell and stewed until Washington State decided they wanted to extradite the prisoner. The thought of extradition terrified Watson. Unaware that Washington State reinstated the death penalty the day after Betty's murder, Watson believed he would hang for such a crime. He asked District Attorney Woolwine for life in prison in exchange for his confession of a California crime, the murder of one Nina Lee Deloney. Nina was a 43-year-old widow from Kentucky, and on January 1920, James and Nina decided to take a trip to Mexico. The first night they camped at Signal Hill, Nina ruffled through her husband's coat pockets and found a letter from another wife. A harsh confrontation ensued and ended when Watson struck her in the head with a hatchet. He carried Nina's dead body to the car and drove to El Centro, California, where he unceremoniously buried her in Sugarloaf Canyon in Imperial County. On May 10, 1920, James led the police to that canyon, and there, in a shallow grave, they found the months-old remains of Nina Lee Deloney. Eventually, Watson confessed to killing 9 of his wives, giving a chilling account of how he murdered each one. To name only a few, Watson married one, Alice Ludvigson of Seattle, while he was using the alias Andrew Hilton. Alice was shoved into the St. Joe River near Spokane and was caught up underneath several heavy logs and drowned. Bertha Goodnick married Watson, while he went by the name H.L. Gordon. She drowned after she was pushed into Lake Washington. And Eleanor Fraser was thrown into the Spokane River and was carried over the falls and crushed on the rocks below. The judge never charged James with bigamy, but with murder. In keeping with the plea bargain, he received a life sentence in San Quentin. Due to threats of lynching and abuse from other prisoners, James didn't have a cell in the general prison population for long. Instead, he was given a job and a room in the prison hospital. James flourished in this environment, and he became an assistant to the chief medical officer. James interacted with the patients in a caring manner, and they were always grateful for his care. He created a life inside San Quentin's walls that was more fulfilling than anything he could have done in the free world. He died of pneumonia on October 16, 1939. James P. Watson. He was, by all accounts, a man of average looks and build, well-spoken, intelligent, and quite bereft of any remorse for the women he killed. Watson appeared to enjoy falling in love, but found staying in love unbearable. Perhaps he married to satisfy his need for human connection, and killed when the women discovered the secret he hid so well. Although he was often brutally unkind to his wives, the passage of time was very kind to Mr. Watson, as his homicidal legacy has largely been forgotten. But his murderous ways have been rediscovered here at the heart of horror.